We were indeed buried with Christ through our baptism into death. So, in order that just as Jesus was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we would too. And yet, I sit in the dark. I sit in the dark because it feels like I'm buried with Christ. It feels like with everything that's going on this year, this Lent, it doesn't feel like there's any hope. And as I sit in the dark to think about the grave, this is what I'm buried with Christ through my baptism. I'm buried into the darkness. And sure, it's not a real tomb. I'm just sitting in a room with the lights off. But the darkness in the 2000s looks like anxiety and frustration and loneliness, rejection, fear. That's the grave of 2020. And so I started thinking about this, and I said, this reading was, we are baptized into the grave, but yet that's not the end of the story. We are promised the resurrection, and yet with everything that's going on today, it doesn't feel like that. And I started thinking, I said, you know what? That may not feel like that, but the reality is there is a promise. And Jesus had to go to the grave. He had to. Because if he never went to the grave, we could never experience the miracle, the gloriousness of the resurrection. And so I started thinking about it. I said, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be in the dark. I'm supposed to be in the grave. And I've said that, in your anxiety, God has you right where you need to be. In your loneliness, God has you right where you need to be. In your fear, God has you right where you need to be. When Jesus Christ was in the grave, he was exactly where he needed to be. Because at that moment, if you are where you need to be, get ready for a miracle. Because God will never leave you in the grave. It may feel like it. It may seem like it. You may not think you're getting out. You may see that it's hopeless. You may feel like, oh my goodness, God, where are you? But just take solace. Take comfort that you are right where you need to be. And the reason you're there is so God can not just do wonderful things for Jesus 2,000 years ago, but he can do something wonderful in your life today. But you got to embrace it. Jesus embraced the cross and he embraced the grave. And once we do that, once we embrace the fear and the loneliness and the anxiety and the rejection, whatever it is, once we embrace our darkness and our grave, get ready for a miracle. Because we are promised resurrection.